Diane, we are so excited to have you on the show today because I feel like our lines of work are just so similar. We try to help solopreneurs and small businesses. And in what we do day in and day out, there are kind of patterns that we see solopreneurs face in their daily operations, their marketing, whatever. So we kind of have a wide array of topics that I want to cover today, but I think they're the ones that solopreneurs need to hear about the most. So if it's okay with you, we'll just dive right in. But welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, on that note, and talking about many, many topics, one of the things solopreneurs struggle with is that they have multiple roles. So, you are so good about putting systems and processes in place for your clients. What do you recommend solopreneurs do to get those in place to manage their business efficiently and effectively?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And this really is one of the biggest things that we all deal with as solopreneurs. My suggestion is to figure out those things that don't require you. So there's things that need to be done in the business, but not necessarily by you. And then take a look at what sort of automation is out there. You're not going to be able to automate everything, but there are a lot of things that you can put in place so that someone else is or something else is doing the lion's share of whatever the function is, whatever the task is. And so you look at those things and then you go looking for the resource. And there are plenty of resources out there these days.
I love that. It's, you're preaching to the choir here. We totally agree with that one. But, things like, sending an email reply to a form submission or something. It's so easy now to find tools to do that for you. If it's just a kind of a general follow-up, then you can follow up personally after. But to get that quick response, because, if you're busy doing something and you wait 24 hours, that can really reduce the engagement rate. So those kinds of things are magic.
And, one of the things that I hear a lot is, well, I have to check my email. Well, not unless you're a neurosurgeon. You don't. I know we feel like we're going to miss something, but if you put an autoresponder on your email that says, I got it, because that's really what people want to know, that it didn't vanish into thin air. They just want to be sure that you got it. And if you say, currently working with clients, just want you to know, got your email, I'll be responding whenever. Now they know what to expect. It's setting the expectation for the people you're engaging with and using folders and things so that you know what's going where.
I love that auto response idea. That's great. You only check emails at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., which...
Right?
Yeah. Setting those boundaries. It's key.
Yes, setting boundaries, right.
It's huge. And I'm so glad you said that because I feel like that's a great way of building rapport with people and building those relationships, which this is something else that I love that you do. You're big on relationship building over like traditional selling. And I was actually on a podcast yesterday and the guy was like, what do solopreneurs need to do more of that they aren't? And I'm like, they get trapped in the traditional selling tactics, the traditional marketing tactics, when really as a company of one, you need to focus on relationship building. So you are big on that too. How can solopreneurs kind of cultivate genuine connections that lead to business growth instead of always be closing?
So they need to let go of the whole idea of selling because we have been trained that selling means a certain thing. And when we are focused on selling, and I get it, we need revenue, we need, we have bills to pay and all of that. But that puts us in a position of desperation, which is detracting. It's not attracting. So if we just let go of this whole idea of selling, because selling doesn't work, and we really focus on learning, getting to know the individual across from us, number one, we will actually sell more. We will sell more of the right things to the right people. And we will get more meaningful referrals over time. So this is the way we build our business for the long haul instead of the short, quick gain.
I love that. People think selling is this kind of speaking skill, and it really is a listening skill. Yep.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, and And then you just come off as like genuinely helpful. I mean, I feel like the connotation with selling, I have started to notice that it is changing. I don't think it's the sleazy car salesman approach that it used to be. And it's funny because we've had some door-to-door salesmen come to our house, and I'm like, kudos to you for hoofing it and doing, but man, this is not how you sell anymore. And this is, I saw this reel on Instagram, and it was like how boomers handle door-to-door salesmen, how millennials and how Gen Z below me. And for millennials and Gen Zers, millennials like hide under their couch
Yeah.
when they hear the doorbell ring. And is Gen Z the one just below me? I think so. They just ignore it and continue doing whatever. But that's just not how people are sold to. Like you need
What
to
were they selling, Carly?
window replacement.
Window replacements.
Yeah. Like, no, thank you. I
Yeah.
don't want to interact this way.
Can't find that on the web, I guess.
It's because, right, or on the TV, right?
Yeah.
It's because this is how they're trained. It is so bad. My belief system is that you can't really sell anything to anybody. So we have to get rid of this idea of, Joe, as you've said, that, it's telling, it's talking. It's not. People will buy from you when they trust you and when they have a need. And so lately I've been calling it the triad of sales: trouble, timing, and trust. So they have to have the trouble that you solve. The timing has to be right, and they have to trust you. And if those three things aren't there, you're not going to close a deal with anybody.
I just went through a home remodel last year with brand new windows. So I don't need it. Timing is off. And what was your third one?
Trust.
Trust.
Trust. I don't know you.
You should have offered to clean your windows for free. Then maybe you'd trust them more.
There you go. Right?
Yes. And if you're the ones to clean my windows, that I will do.
But the one question I have about the timing aspect is that I have heard from some smart people, and I'm referring specifically to a guy named Chet Holmes, who was one of those kind of old-fashioned sales guys, but very smart, very, very skilled, maybe, a little progressive for his time, which was, 20 years ago. But he had this whole concept that he used to talk about in the core story, and how sometimes with the right core story, you can make people realize that the timing is better than they would think it was.
Oh, sure.
And I remember him using the example of carpet cleaning. And his core story for this business was educating people that your carpets are actually cleaning your air, but only till the point where they get dirty. And it was like 18 months or something. But I said, it doesn't always work. But I thought that was an interesting approach to kind of thinking through trying to overcome the timing issue with certain kinds of businesses.
So I totally get that. I think what's key is that before you decide to tell people that, you first have a bunch of questions you need to ask so that the door is open for you to then, it's more of a response to something that they've said than it is to you just, I've got these talking points that I need to make sure I get out. And if I'm good enough at it, you'll get it and you'll buy from me. It's just, forget it.
I've literally seen salespeople, like, I have a question and they would literally talk over me to get their next point out. It's like, no, don't do that.
You guys, I'm so happy that we're talking about timing, because just to kind of pivot a little bit, time management is another thing that solopreneurs struggle with because they're self-accountable. And a lot of times people need those external people and accountability partners to get done. So how can, in your opinion, Diane, how can solopreneurs structure their day to maximize productivity without burning out? Because it's so easy to do.
Yeah. So, and I experienced this when I started my business. My thought process, my CPA had said to me, being a business owner means you can work any 12 hours you want to, and a day, right? And I believed it, and I was like, yeah, I've got all this time. And then I realized I wasn't being productive because I kept thinking, I've got time, right? I can do it later. I can, I've got till I go to bed at night. And it's what I learned was you still need to keep your most of your activity in a regular work day. Part of the key to that is figuring out when you're on, based on whatever you do, when you should be doing certain things. So some people are morning people, some people are afternoon people, some people are evening people. I totally get it. And you're going to be networking in the evening. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those functions that you have to get done. You got to figure out where you're putting them in the day, and then you got to hold to it, and you got to take breaks. So you sort of have to pretend like you're working for someone else, right? I had to learn to take a lunch break because I would sit at my desk all day long. You lose productivity when you do that. The other thing I would say is I do this thing called siloing, where I have like 3 initiatives at most, and I have silos where I put the things that I need to get done for each of those in their own silo. So I can just look at it and say, this is something I need to accomplish. And then the key is then I transfer it to the calendar. This is something that solopreneurs do not do very well in my experience. They don't put these functions on the calendar. There's a variety of reasons why. But if you don't put it on the calendar, you're not going to get it done until you absolutely have to. And then it's probably going to be an all night, it's cramming for a test kind of thing.
Question.
Sure.
Just to clarification. So when you talk about putting these things on the calendar, you're talking about like recurring kinds of tasks, like balancing the checkbook or sending out invoices, or are you talking about project-based things?
I'm talking about both.
Okay. Now, how far out do you go with the project-based things?
Well, okay. So I believe that projects are linear. And so you put the first couple of steps on your calendar, and then once you've hit them, it sort of informs the next couple of steps. So then you'll put those there. What I tell my clients is take your calendar and first put in all of the things that you already have scheduled, like those meetings that are monthly or those meetings that are weekly, whatever it is. Put all these things on there, whatever these appointments are. And then there's white space there, and there better be white space. And in that white space, some people there isn't. That's all the problem. In that white space, just put half-hour blocks. Because the other thing people do is they say, this is a huge project. I need to block out a day, or I need to block out 2 hours. And then that time comes and they say, I can't afford 2 hours. I can't afford a day. So they don't do the thing, right? If you break that thing down, because every big thing is individual steps. If you break it down into those little individual steps and you say, you know what? Just for a half an hour on Tuesday morning, I'm going to work on this. And I'll see how far I get, and then I'll plug in the next one. If we can get ourselves into a habit like that, what we realize, 2 things happen. One, we're actually checking things off, and it's motivating because we are actually accomplishing these things and getting them done. So we're more likely to continue that process.
What I love about that is that next step thinking, because that's what holds up a lot of projects is people aren't thinking, what's the next thing that has to happen to move this forward? And if you just break it into a small step like that, and maybe it's a half an hour, maybe it's 45 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, boom, you take a step forward and now you've got momentum.
Yeah.
Like that.
Can I tell you a trick that my husband uses to trick me that I think is helpful for those breaks in that white space? So I am one of those people that if I see I have 30 minutes, oh, I can plug this in. I can figure it out. My calendar looks ridiculous because of this. And so about a year ago, I started seeing time blocks on my calendar that says room for opportunity. And my husband's like, now you have something scheduled that you have to stick to on your calendar and you're not allowed to plan anything. And it's just that breather that I need.
Yeah.
And he's put it on our family calendar just to be like, cool your jets. Don't touch your computer. It's on the calendar, so you have to stick with it. But it does trick my brain because I feel like I'm like, oh, I do have time there, but really I don't.
Something's there, right.
And if you overschedule, you wind up having things come up that you can't avoid. And now you're like, oh, my whole day's shot. And it's like, if you leave those room for those things to just come up, somebody has a problem, or, the dog needs to go to the vet because he ate something stupid like my dog does sometimes. You just, it's not like the whole day is destroyed.
Exactly right. And when you have smaller blocks, it's easier to reschedule them. So in the event something like that happens, like I have 2 adult kids. Even though they're adults, I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten that emergency call where I've had to drop everything and go. I don't get all up in my head about it because whatever I had scheduled is so small that it's easy to move. So I still feel like I'm in control, right? I mean, that's really what we're looking for, is not feeling like our day is running us, but we're running our day.
No, I'm just like, I'm really psyched because, we've been doing this, how many hundred and something episodes, Carly? Almost at 200 episodes. And that is a point nobody has ever made before, of time blocking in smaller quantities to make it easier to juggle when something comes up. That is a new concept for me. I love getting new ideas. Thank you.
At the end of the day, this is all kind of a mindset shift. Like, yeah, we're
Yes.
talking about calendar blocking, but it's also that we can kind of reframe our minds if we're being honest. That's another big thing that solopreneurs struggle with. So what do you think some mental shifts are, that solopreneurs can make to thrive in their businesses? Aside from this time management thing, what else can they be doing?
So one of the biggest mindset shifts is about selling, which we've talked about. I mean, you have to let it go. It's a terrible thing. Another one is that they have to have all the answers. They already need to know the answers to questions that haven't even presented themselves yet. The truth is, no one has all the answers ever. And that's not your job. But your job is to identify the question and go find the answer. Like a lot of people, it's not really that their ego's in the way, it's that they have this mindset, this belief system that, I'm a business owner and therefore, well, no, unless you can't possibly have experienced everything in the world and stuff's going to happen. And so it's really a matter of being flexible with that and being curious, right? Being more curious than rigid. So, that would be something. And here's another big one: feeling like they can't let go of functions because it's going to make them vulnerable. Because the truth is the exact opposite. You are vulnerable if you do not have layers, if you do not have some sort of depth, if you do not have things in writing, if you do not have other people who you can VAs, hand off stuff to, so that you can focus on, what a lot of people call your zone of genius, the thing that only you can bring to the business. Then you're vulnerable. It's not the other way around.
You get sick, and now not only can you not produce, you can't even send invoices. You can't, it's so important. I totally agree. I love it.
Joe is fresh off of like a 10-day stint of having the cold of the year.
Yeah, it was more than a cold. Colds don't usually get me horizontal for that long, but I have a great group of people I work with, solopreneurs and other companies that help me with certain aspects of the business. And yeah, a few things slowed down, but it didn't end.
Right.
With a little
Exactly.
engine that could. Just kept going. If they think
Never
I can,
broke.
I think you can. Well, all of those are such wonderful points, and people can like do their best to develop the mental resilience and change how they think about everything. But like we were just talking about, that's all like great, but every solopreneur faces setbacks. And as great as they are mentally, those setbacks, whether it's being sick, like we were just talking about, or low lead gen funnel, or they're having to dip into their sales. Like those are really hard. That's really hard to bounce back from. So how do you advise people handle those setbacks, whether they're financial or something else, to continue their little engine that could business journey?
So I guess it's a twofold thing. One, don't think of them as setbacks. Think of them as opportunities, because stuff happens, and there's that saying, it's not what happens to you that matters. It's what you do with what happens to you that matters. So the great thing is we have choice and we get to decide how we're going to deal with these things. The other thing is this: take action, take some sort of action. Because I learned from a psychologist years ago that when we're anxious, we're in the future. But when we're taking action, we're in the present. So you can't be anxious if you're taking action. I can tell you firsthand knowledge. If I wake up in the middle of the night and my brain starts going and I start thinking about, holy cow, I have a client who's done, or 2 clients, or, whatever it is, I get up and I mean, this is the other good thing about being a solopreneur. I can go back to bed, right? But I get up and I do something in my business. I write an article, I Google something, I create a plan of action. I do something forward moving in my business because it's that activity that generates more activity in your business.
And can I just add to that? That doesn't mean you have to go write your business plan. That could be as easy as listening to a podcast that's relevant to your business. You said you Google stuff, but it could just be something to, okay, I'm educating myself because continuous learning is so important. Just those little things. You don't need to go write your next marketing strategy at 2
Right. Right. You could write a to-do list. I mean, literally, you could just, here's what I'm going to do in the morning, or here's what, here's some things I want to, whatever. It's doing the dump. It's getting that stuff out of your head. But it's also, from what I've learned, it has to be something that is moving your business forward. That doesn't, you're not going to make phone calls, you're not going to send emails, whatever. And once again, there are tools. I can send emails in the middle of the night because I can use something like Boomerang that won't actually send it until the morning, right? So I can go ahead and do all of that and get it out and be done. And then you feel like accomplishment and you feel like you are doing something positive in the face of something negative.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Diane, you have so many nuggets of wisdom. And I just love that we've covered a variety of topics because that is the day of a solopreneur. One moment you're focusing on time management, the next you're talking about sales and this and that. Then you're waking up at 2 a.m. We're kind of talking through the life of a solopreneur where you're just bouncing all over the place. So no pressure for this last tidbit that I want to ask you, but if you could give one piece of advice to someone considering this crazy awesome world of solopreneurship, what would that one piece of advice be?
I think it would be embrace the idea that you can do anything you want. You just can't do it all at the same time.
That one hit me hard.
I can tell.
Where were you last year, or 20 years ago?
Well, if that's your parting wisdom, what is your favorite quote about success? Now I'm intrigued by that.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see what you think of this. So I would say my favorite is, because I think it speaks to all of these things, is wealth, like happiness, is not achieved when sought after directly. It is a byproduct of providing a valuable service. Henry Ford.
He has such good quotes.
Oh, I know. Tons of them. But that one totally resonates with me. Sorry, because it speaks to this whole don't go after the sale, build the relationship, get to know people, be curious, be good at what you do, provide something of value, because the money will come. But if you focus on the money, it'll never come. So shift.
Well, Diane, you are just a great source of knowledge. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Sure. The easiest thing is just to go to my website, helbigenterprises.com.
So that's HELBIG enterprises.com.
And that will be in the show notes. Well, Diane, thank you so much for coming on today. We've been anticipating this conversation and I'm so happy we made it happen.
Me too.
And it was wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. As always, leave that 5-star review. We would really love it if you would do that. Share this episode with a friend, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. And we will see you next time on The Aspiring Solopreneur.